Recording in progress.
All right, thanks for joining. I'm kind of blocking you a little bit there, Brian, but I can duck. Okay. Hi, Lasita. Hi, Nicola, Richard, Christine. I'm here with Brian, Ashley, Mike, Danny, and Mark. So full house today. Um, Hi, Brandy. See you joined as well. Hi, Lasita. See you waving. Nice backdrop. So today the topic is the nodes, and I want to talk about the road that we travel in life. I was thinking of path. There's other ways of describing the nodes. Ra often calls them the stage of life, particularly in our 30s, which is when we've kind of entered into this phase of life post Saturn return, but pre Chiron. And you can think of the nodes kind of like the stage as well, the environment that we're in. But I want to actually use the simile of a road in particular, that in the sense that some of us have an easier road and a harder road in life. There's actually a great quote from Ra. I posted it in the Discord in my room, but what he's basically saying, and I could read the whole thing, but the gist of it is that the road that we travel is our own road, that we each have our own road through life, and that not all roads are the same. And not only are they not all the same, some legitimately are harder than others. And so there can be this kind of idea of, wow, why is my road in life so difficult and others have an easier road? Well, it's difficult in one sense, maybe easier in a different sense. But besides that, I wouldn't even want to put out that there's some sort of equalizing, normalizing factor. That's kind of dismissive for those who really do have a hard road in life. Instead, I would just kind of remind each of us that the road in life that we have is our road. And in some sense, we, if not chose it, we at least we somehow signed up for this. It's somehow necessary for us to have had this road and not a different road in life. So today I want to look at the nodes, and I want to basically look at the lines of the nodes and start there to see what we can generalize about the lines. And then from there, if we want to, we can look at the actual line in its gate context and try to extrapolate from that. But to begin with, I just want to kind of talk about the lines of the nodes and look at what lines each of us has, who has first line nodes, who has second line nodes, and so on, and what that has to say about the road that they are here to travel. What is their unique path? The high road, the low road, the hard road, the school of hard knocks, or the easy road, the road that's fraught with danger and peril, or the road that's more gentle and smooth, and so on. And because we really are going through these different roads in life, and we are going to meet different things on the way. And so yeah, so that's kind of the topic for today. And this microphone does not really pick up what other people say unless they hold it and talk directly into it. So I'm going to pass it around for anyone who does have comments. But I also welcome comments and discussion from our remote guests. So anyone who is a remote guest who wants to chime in at any point, we have you on the microphone. I mean, on the speaker here. We have this little speaker so we can hear you. And let's see. I see a comment from Christine. It's Reiki Marco. Oh, Coco's partner, Emerald's design. Oh, okay. Very cool. Yeah, I was just commenting on that awesome graphic. So yeah, so I think we're just going to start by talking about, and you know what? Maybe I'll hand it off and I will dig up that Ra quote. So if anyone wants to, how about Mark? Do you have any? Okay, Mark's like, no, not me. Would anyone else like to talk about the nodes a little bit, or just how they use nodes in their analysis? Would you discuss any of that, Mike? Or I just want to find that Ra quote. It's going to take me a minute to dig up. Okay.
Well, time to vamp on the nodes. So something that I got into with using the nodes with clients that you introduced me to, Jonah, is just how much more visible the nodes are when they're when someone's in their not self life, right? Mark, you were talking about this earlier today too, that people get lost in the nodes, they mistake themselves for the nodes, and it's kind of, and you can see over representation of the nodes in the life. when people are not living as much as themselves. And so you can see that on a line level, because I think we're mostly going to be talking about line today. If your nodal lines are different than your personality design sun earth lines, then you can start to sort of resemble the template for one of the other profiles. What else are we talking about?
Just keep going.
About what? Okay.
There's a few people who haven't been able to join yet. I'm trying to help two people who don't have the right link. And so they're like asking, how do I get on the Discord? And so, okay. Yeah. You guys have any questions or comments?
Second line.
Oh, so cute. So it's different.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll find the quote.
Except for one.
Okay.
Hey, let's keep the conversation going. Come on. He's trying to talk and sorry.
Sorry.
I'm actually not trying to talk this yet. I really am.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But if we wait long enough in silence, Mike will say something. I've learned this. But if people continue to talk, then he won't say anything. So this is the game. All right, this is Ra now, and he's talking about the nodes. And so he's talking in particular, he's looking at a chart where there's third and second line nodes, and he starts talking about the third line nodes. And so this might be a good place to begin, and then we can extrapolate from here and kind of go through each of the lines. So he says, when you have third line nodes for the personality, the road is full of financial pressure and demands. So, I mean, kind of, already to think about how do we deconstruct, like we know that the third line has to do with the material way and building the Maya. Well, already then, if you have third line nodes, who here has third line nodes, by the way? Anyone? What? Okay, Casey does. Yeah, you have nodes 3 and 5, I know. Anyone?
I do too, Jonah. I got unconscious line 3.
Okay, great. Yeah. So Richard has third line nodes. I have third line nodes on both sides, which is not that common to have the same nodal line. Different gates, but yeah. So, I mean, we know what it's like having material pressure and having the material way, the trial and error way. It's so here's what Ra has to say. It's a road full of financial pressure and demands, that going down that road isn't like taking a free ride down the road. Going down the road can be working, getting enough money, being stuck, then moving on to the next stage down the road. That going down that road may in fact be a job. Yeah, it's hard work to get down that road. It's not a road that just takes you. It's a road that you try, it doesn't work, and you try again, and you reach obstacles. You have to overcome those obstacles. It's the bumpiest road. Yeah, that's what Mike says. Toil on the material plane, Ashley says. Yeah, absolutely. So Ra continues, going down that road may in fact be a job. You become a travel guide in that sense. Literally, there's going to be work involved, and work is going to be a very important aspect. Ra says his unconscious mind, his 4323 definition, is a third line definition from his design nodes. He goes down the road of making money. Nothing he can do. And his mind is making the money, his knowing, because it's 4323. So that's interesting to see as well, that where your nodes are, if they're third line nodes, are going to be, how do you get down this road? What do you have to do to get down that road? So I have 4526. I have to gather people together, and I have to sell them on things, and I have to be entrepreneurial and so on. And then I also have 1222. So I have to be able to articulate and be able to express through the throat. I mean, these are two throat nodal environments. So there's going to be a lot of talking and just to even get down the road, So, Ra continues, nothing he can do. His mind is making the money. That's his road. So at the unconscious level, there's his road that's laid out for him, and there it is. And it means he's going to have to deal with the material plane, that there's no other way to go down the road. And he has an undefined sacral and doesn't want to work. And the road is saying, yes, but you must. I mean, it's funny because he did have a lot of financial issues, and he was able, I mean, for instance, when he was living in Taos and his son was born after 6 months of pregnancy, was born prematurely, he was left with $500,000 of medical debt. And you might say, well, that's a really rough road. But lucky us that he then had to do so much work that then benefited us. It's not that, I've heard people kind of criticize Ra saying, well, because he had to do things to make money, that somehow removed some of the legitimacy, like he was just thinking up anything he could. Well, lucky us. That doesn't remove that at all. I mean, necessity is the mother of invention, and his inventiveness and ways of interpreting human design knowledge is a great gift to humanity that was spurred by this debt, this tremendous debt that he had to contend with. So, yeah.
As Mark pointed out earlier, his inventiveness was his nodes. His design nodes are his 4323, right?
Oh, that's a really good point, that it was actually his genius and his sort of that was, he had to use his mind and his knowing to do that. So Ra continues, he's not fulfilled until he gets to a point that he works and that the work is correct for him and the right work. And when you do the right work, you make money. And then you see that money is not something that's difficult. You go through all these lessons and you learn all these things. So the first thing you can see, now he's talking about the chart he's looking at, which has personality third line nodes. So he says the first thing you can see about this personality is that the personality is going to be caught up in that. Whereas for him, for Ra, his road of money is unconscious. He says, my body is into that, bless its heart. Yeah, it's true. If you have I love that, bless its heart, about the design side. It seems to be into that. It knows how to make money, bless its heart. Thank you, body. Thank you, design. So he says his body is into that. His vehicle is into that. His personality is not stuck with that. His passenger has a vehicle that makes money. But this is a passenger that wants to make money. So that's how different it is when he's looking at the personality. Now, for me, I have third line nodes on both sides. So I have a passenger that wants to make money. I have a design that makes money.
Wait, why is it saying that his passenger wants to?
No. He's saying his design. Yeah, no. But he does say, so, okay. So the question was, so he's not talking about himself here. He says, the thing you can see about this chart he's looking at with its third line nodes personality side is that it is a passenger that wants to make money. And whereas for him, he says his passenger has a vehicle that makes money. But the difference is, for this body graph he's looking at, it's a passenger that wants to make money, and its vehicle, which has second line nodes, its vehicle has the second line saying, I don't want to do that now. Don't bother me. Why do I have to do that? I don't want to do that. Leave me alone. Let somebody else go out and make the money. Maybe I find a man that goes out and makes the money. That would be easier. Really, this is the way it works. So you can see to begin with that you've got a material road with these third line nodes. But more than that, you've got a trial and error road. There's going to be mistakes along the way, bonds made and broken, discovery, mutation, all of those things. Not an easy road. Then he has a nice aside here, kind of what I was saying earlier. By the way, there are roads that are easier than others at different levels. But it doesn't mean in the end, when you homogenize it all out, that any one is easier than the other, because there are always other aspects that come in. Yeah, they're just advantages and disadvantages in different ways, I would add. But if you know somebody who's got a third line road, that road's not been easy, or for him, his road's not been easy. No complaints, that's just the way it is. You've got to go through the whole business. You've got to check it all out. Otherwise, there's no discovery. You've got to go through the ups and the downs. You've got to learn from mistakes and so on. And then his design side, this chart he's looking at, has a second line. So he says, now there's the second line unconscious for the road. And we know already, we've seen and talked about that if you have a second line, it's the line of the hermit that's here to be called, the natural. But it's going to avoid being placed under pressure. It doesn't want to be placed under pressure. So it has difficulty in flowing down that road. This is a 3-2 road. So it's a trial and error process that goes into the hermit, leave me alone. It's a trial and error on who they're going to allow to call them. Everything about being fulfilled going down this trial and error road is that only through the call are they going to be able to find the material direction that's right for them. So see, these are requirements that are placed. If you have second line nodes, how do you get further on the road? You reach a dead end. Well, someone comes along and calls you, or someone says, hey, this is the right way to go. There's going to be someone that gets through to you because you're going, no, 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 I don't want to go that way. I don't want to go this way. It seems like the road has reached the end, you know? So, oh, you have second line
Design,
notes? Yeah. So you have design second line. So yeah. So, you know, Mark he reaches an impasse and then finds a way through it through being called to get past that impasse.
Whether I'm open or closed to it too.
And whether he's open
It's
or close to that
capable
call.
of-
Yeah, right. There's a taste
there's-
keynote there. So everything about being fulfilled is going down this trial and error road that is only through the call are they going to be able to find the material direction that's right. And their purpose is being fulfilled through form. So the one thing they know about this person is that they loved to make money. For a lot of people, that's dirty business. But this is somebody who's uncomfortable with loving to make money. And so I'm not sure who this person actually was, but Raja says he's seen this person who has lived out the various states of money. And he's seen this person have a glow after being able to be successful materially. So, and I'm kind of skipping through a little bit of it now, but he says, you know, look at that road. There's that road saying to you, okay, this is going to be difficult, and you're only going to make progress as you get called, so you can keep on moving. And if you're really living out your design, you will be able to commit yourself to exactly the right experience, following your convictions through it, and ultimately receive your reward. So, I mean, it's really just deconstructing the lines. Now, we can obviously look at the gates, and there's other aspects as well. You can look at the color, which is environment on the design side, or view or perspective on the personality side. But just keeping it at the line level to kind of generalize the lines, that's kind of my idea for today, is to just go through and how can we use our, you know, imagination to kind of see what these different roads are like, really. I mean, what is a first line road? What is a sixth line road? And so on. So comment from Brandy Jordan that she has second line design nodes. Yeah, on the 22.2 and the 47.2. So yeah, so that you're going to reach impasses that then, you know, how do you get past that impasse? It's going to be through the call in some sense. Christine says she has no 3s in her chart except outer vision environment. And technically, Ross said gate 30 is like a line 3. Well, I could see that. I hadn't heard that, but that makes sense because it's the fates. You're going out there and seeing what happens and so on.
Gate 30 is
Gate 30 is a pseudo roll gate that you use with the lines of gate 30 and match it up with your profile if you don't have gate 30. So the third line, though, like genetic continuity, is the third line plane that we live on. So the gate 30, line 3, is resignation, the acceptance of that, of what is. So it is what it is what it is. It's a very third line theme and something that anyone can identify with in terms of
That we're all basically resigned. Yeah.
yes, either you resign or not.
Yeah, when we're dealing with the fates, we have that makes a lot of sense, but it is a sort of universal quality there. Christine says she figures her line 6s counted for 3s back in the day. Perhaps it was more efficient a design. Yeah, maybe so. So, okay. So just while we're on the third line nodes, does anyone, so who has third line nodes, maybe want to comment on it? Or I know Casey, you mentioned having third line nodes. Oh, please. Yeah, Ashley.
I have 38 and 39 as my personality nodes in the third line. And I mean, your personality gets caught up and that makes sense to me. Because I think in the past, especially through like Instagram, being really drawn to accounts that are very provocative, that are fighter-y, and more being like just not even paying attention to any of it anymore. So that's kind of interesting, anecdotal, personal.
Yeah, and you're saying because the gates 38 and 39, those are kind of those are individual gates from the root. It's the fighter and the provocateur, exactly. And so because of that you are kind of drawn to those, but then also just the fact that they're the third lines, that you have a passenger then that maybe is materially oriented and does kind of realize it's going to have a certain amount. So,
or at least I'm seeing that in my world. I'm drawn to that, but isn't personality nodes not necessarily you? Is that kind of the idea? It's like what you're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be something. It's going to be something that is going to be a
When your
part of the
passenger
road you're
becomes
on.
Part of your road or whatever, but
It's going to be part of the road you're on for sure, because I mean, it's how are you going to get down that road? What's going to make you get down that road? So yeah, I mean, if you have a passenger that likes to make money and you're going to need money to go on this road, it's like that's a road that you pay the toll and that you pay the price, and there's going to be, you know, material challenges that come up on that road. So I think we can deconstruct the nodes in many different ways, but this exercise is really to see, like, if you were kind of standing at a hub world and there's 6 different paths to go, and your soul is kind of going, which path do I take, or which 2 paths do I take? Or a road that combines those 2, right? Do you know what your design node line is?
yeah. Same as his 54.4 for North Node and 53.4 for South Node.
Oh, that's so cool. These 54 fours. I mean, that's the most mystical line in the whole I Ching. So we know that you're on a 3-4 road, that your 3-4 road is going to be expensive and cost a lot of money and so on, but it's also going to meet a lot of challenges, but it's also going to be one where you're going to get opportunities through friendship and through connection. And I mean, what you were saying is like nodes being what we're drawn to or what we see. That is one level of deconstructing it, but it also makes sense that if you need those people, if you need to get you know, ahead, that you're going to, of course you're going to like them. So I mean, this way of kind of analyzing the nodes of what we're drawn to or what we're here to see on the personality side, or signposts that we're in the right place, that's another way that Ra uses it. I mean, he doesn't really, like, in his nodal environments, he doesn't distinguish between personality and design nodes. At times he seems to distinguish, like in this quote that I gave, he seemed to distinguish that the personality nodes are related to purpose and that the design nodes are related to how to achieve that purpose. He's not explicit, but that is the way he looks at profile, where he says, for instance, that the personality profile line is what gives you continuity, but the design profile line is what gives you development. Like when you get stuck, how do you get through it? Through the development of the design side. So it does seem that in some sense, the design is at the service of the personality. Like you're in the right place so you can see what you're here to see. When he does the 4 transformations, he does, well, yeah. So,
and you said something interesting earlier. I've thought about this a lot because I started with astrology before I got into human design. And so I've looked at a lot of people's lunar node axis and astrology. And so that would be the same as their personality nodes, right? Transferred to human design. And what I've noticed is that mentally people seem to get really hung up on achieving their lunar node, their north node direction by like their Saturn return. But it's really not until like, I've noticed like a few years before Chiron return, like those years kind of leading up, that they really seem to naturally start to align to that, the personality nodes basically, or the north node direction of that, if that makes sense.
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And so there is the directionality of the nodes as well. Moving from the south to the north node, although that seems to be a little bit less of I mean, the main thing is that these polarities are pairs and that they can give you hints. So if we're looking at the gates, we're looking at basically, we're trying to deconstruct what is the correct environment, or what environment can you really thrive in? You know, what is your stage? Like if you're an actor on a stage, what is the ideal stage for you? And in your case, you can handle a lot of root tension and pressure that 38, 39, you can also handle with that 54, 53. I mean, this is root stuff. I mean, basically we're dealing with,
Also dealing with people who can or cannot deal with pressure, with ambition. You know, these are things, the themes that, or not, because mostly we're living in a not self-predominant world. So when we're looking at nodal themes, what is the not self aspect of those nodal themes and those gates and the line? Because that's what you're going to really see and experience for the most part until you get to where you are, you meet the right people and the right environment where that may come to fruition in a correct way, you know, in a way that, but the nodes are probably the most complex and diverse and contextual aspect of the chart because they have so many different roles.
Yeah, they cause activation, and yet they're also, I mean, in some sense, they're kind of like where the outside connects to the inside. Like, for instance, well, I mean, there's parts of the human body that, like the throat and so on, that is like outside. We're taking in from the outside. I don't know. There's just certain things where I would just say that my analysis of the roads today is looking at them in terms of the path that we take through life, as opposed to there's so many different ways to deconstruct them. And so people can get caught up in endless deconstruction, even of the gates, which can be useful. Like you were saying, you can handle provocative fighter accounts and so,
Right.
and so on. But besides that, I mean, just looking at the lines and really just seeing it even a more fundamental level, like how is it? So let's see, maybe we'll just start at the first line. And if anybody wants to jump in and comment at any point, but who here has first
Can I
line
just
note?
do a quick high
Please, Dave,
five?
yeah.
I just want to do a high five because I also have 38, 39, 53,
Oh, nice.
54 nodes.
Cool.
So
Oh, wow. The same
Yeah,
combination of
party time.
nodes too. Well,
not the same lines, I don't think, but
Right,
And
right.
age difference, so that's interesting.
Yeah. No, that is
right?
really
I mean, I
interesting.
guess
That's-
it makes sense that they would line up that with that. They're just a certain distance away from each other, so it must not be too unusual.
Yeah, but there's other people that are, but there's other people that aren't going to have, I mean, they're going to have the nodes in the same gates as well. So, I mean, yeah, you're right. It's not so uncommon, but it's decently rare. I mean,
there's some sort of brotherhood of node samesies.
well, and then also node samesies with sun earth samesy people. Like you have 38, 39 in your,
It's my, personalized sun earth in line 3. So that's,
yeah. So Mark has personality sun earth, which are her nodes are directly on Mark's sun earth. And that's always nice to see too, when there's,
And then who had the 2247? Because that's my sun earth.
oh, right. He's a 22 sun. So
That was me.
that was right. Right. That was Brandy who was saying, yeah.
I've got my nodes there, 22, 47 too. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh my God. So that's pretty cool. I really like that. I do. I mean, that is kind of fun when you start to find, when the nodes line up to the sun earths and so on. And then there are people like whoever was born in the last couple days for whom the sun earth and the nodes are the same. And so you get into some interesting cases as well. Which does happen a couple times a year. So, okay, well, let's just start with the first line. So who here has first line nodes on either side? Maybe in the room, okay?
Rod does on his personalities.
Oh, Ra had personality first line. Yeah, so the path of study. And I see Ryan has.
And he has all those first lines, so I mean,
Yeah,
it's the road to fame.
that's two of them right there. You have first line nodes? Or? No? Yeah. So I mean the first line nodes and then anyone else, and then Blossom has first line design nodes. Yeah. So that's a good interesting point that Ra had first line personality nodes. I mean, just looking at his life, because we know a lot about his life, it seems like if the nodes are the road we take, what we kind of have to do to get to the next phase, like he was talking about the third line hitting a dead end and then needing to make money or figure out something to get past it. Second line hits a dead end, needs to be called. It seems like the first line, they have to get their solid foundation. And it's almost like there's these toll booths or these thresholds where they can't be let in until they've reached a certain level of authority, a certain level of expertise, a certain level of skill, that they have to go through apprenticeship. It's like, here's a road where in life you're going to have to work as well in a different way, not the third line work in the material plane, but the work of study, of investigation, of research. You're going to have to be really smart. This is about developing intelligence. It's like you get to a certain point, they won't let you go any further. Life won't get you go any further. It won't let you in until you've done your homework. This is the homework road, the road of homework.
You got Martin Grassinger is also first line personality, and so is Randy Richmond.
Oh
He
my
was,
God. Yeah.
He was a first line personality.
So for those, in case this mic doesn't pick up so well, but he was saying Randy Richmond and Martin Grassinger, as well as Ra, all have first line personality nodes. Yeah. Nodes or roads.
Genoa
Exactly.
And Genoa has first line on both sides. And so are some of the people here. I think it's Ricky and Nicola have first line.
Wow. Oh, I see that now in the comments. Thanks for pointing that out. And that's incredible about Genoa. I mean, he has one of the most encyclopedic knowledges of human design, if anyone I've ever met, if not the most. And that first line makes so much sense because that's not his profile, but that's the path he's had to take. It's a path that to move forward down that path has required, I mean, such an immense study and an incredible studious mind. And he's surrounded by students and by fellow educators and people learning the knowledge and so on. So it seems like as a signpost, being around people who are hungry for knowledge and hungry to learn and willing to put in that effort to learn is very much a nodal signpost there. Yeah, I like that a lot. Any first lines here? Care to comment? I know you've been studying, Brian. You study a lot.
Yeah, I haven't.
Sorry. Okay, it's okay. You can just talk, and I'll just repeat whatever you say.
No, I haven't done into the notes enough to.
Yeah.
I'm appreciating.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah. So the first line nodes. I mean, now the other interesting thing. So you were saying, so two side points here. You were saying the nodes can be what we're drawn to at times, and then you were also saying that the way Ra describes the nodes are often as what's missing in the world, or in the not self, there's a dysfunction. It's the or not side of it. But I was going to say that those are kind of compatible, because it's like, if you have to go down this road, there's certain requirements to get down the road and keep going. On the one hand, you're going to be drawn to people that can help you in that regard. So if you're a first line node person, you may actually be drawn to first lines in your life. You might like those first line people because they're going to have knowledge that'll help. But then to the other point about the environment often being, like, if you read Ra's nodal environments, or I guess it's a transcription of his lectures, so if you hear it, he's really describing these environments often in terms of what's missing. And it's kind of funny because it's counterintuitive. Like, I have 12 in my nodes, and he would say, that's the gate of caution. He would say, this is an environment where there's not enough caution. Everyone's just giving in and being incautious and not careful enough. Or, gate 11, the other part of that, where there's not enough ideas. People are starved for ideas. So the nodes, he's often looking at what is lacking. And you might wonder, well, that's kind of funny. Why is that? But also, maybe you yourself are thriving on your stage when you have what's lacking, because the nodes are activation. So if there's people that don't have ideas, well, hey, I'm a gate 11, I have ideas. So it's just an interesting idea that it is kind of.
Or you can see who has the right idea for you or not, or who you can be an influence or not, online that way.
Yeah. So I mean, there's different ways of interpreting these, but I guess just thinking about.
And it also gets where we get mentally not.
And then the nodes being where we can get mentally hung up is what you're saying as well. Yeah, I've heard Ra talk about getting lost in the nodes, and that is something he would say is that, which makes sense if you look at nodes as kind of the cohort that you came into this world in, where your personality sun earth line is very much, that's part of your profile, that's related to your incarnation cross. You can't really talk about cross without talking about profile. I mean, this is related to your life purpose. And yet that's a very specific window of time. I mean, when you get down to base level, it's very specific. And when you're looking at this very specific window of time, it exists in the larger window of time that is the nodes. The nodes have these 3 month, 3.5 month windows, where that's a commonality you share with everyone who was born in that whole 3 month window. And so when we're talking about this larger span of time that you share with other people, it is kind of like a class of 2020, right? It's kind of like your high school graduating class in a way. I mean, that's the whole year. This is only 3.5 months, but nevertheless, there is a similarity in that you're not as differentiated at the nodal level than you are at the personality level. And so your particular purpose being related to your sun earth on the personality side rather, is so specific and so precise. And it's not even the incarnation cross is not precise enough. We have to really look at what profile on that incarnation cross. And then we can get even more precise all the way down to base level, where that particular base of that profile. But when we're talking about the nodes, there is something, I mean, yes, they get specific, and yes, we talk about color and tone and so on, but because they're slower moving, there's just something there that gives us more commonality with others of our nodes rather than the differentiation that you get with profile.
External theme that
Yeah.
aligns with other people.
Well, and also because we're talking about the external and the environment, I mean, just 2 points here. I guess one is that it's very easy to notice the changing nodes, that the nodes, because they are reflected in the environment, is not just some energetic that you feel. You can actually see them played out in the stories of the environment for that time. So when 30 is in the nodes, we were talking about that earlier. Well, that's the fates. There's going to be a lot of detour signs. There's going to be a lot of, under construction and stuff, and you're gonna have fate constantly thwarting you because the whole environment is going to express that. So that's one point there. But then the other is that when Ra would talk about differentiation, he would say that it really is about, at the level of the personality, the outer authority of the personality, which is the ability to kind of, to live out its role, but to do it in a unique way. And he had this story that he would say, which is how horrified he was when he was working in fashion photography, and he used to make music videos and stuff like that. And he was horrified that the photographer it said, oh, the furniture is here. And he was like, furniture? We don't need furniture. And he went and he was talking about people, that the models were actually called furniture, this horrible idea, right? So one of Ra's things was, don't be furniture. And he would make jokes about, you go out in the world and it's like going out to the furniture show, and his very dark sense of humor there. But isn't that what it is when people have replaced their life purpose as expressed through the sun earth with identification with the nodes? And this brings me to actually one of my own observations about the nodes, which is that they can be what we're striving to be, when really they're probably better understood as just what we enjoy or what we like or what we want to surround ourselves with. So you can get into this really interesting business where people can identify so strongly with the nodes that they've actually given up on what their true life purpose is. And this is something I will say, it's kind of a little bit of a tangent, but Steve Rhodes does a really good job of examining this when he talks about, you could have left variable sun earths where you're very strategic, but then you have right variable nodes where you're really drawn to feeling, into the solar plexus binary and all of this. And you can get those confused and think that you need to be a laid back person, or vice versa. And I actually did a couples analysis for a couple where they were both right variable sun earths, feeling binary, solar plexus binary, and they were both splenic binary nodes. And you could see it because their biggest complaint about each other is that they weren't making enough money, and they weren't working hard enough, and they weren't, achieving enough. And so if you see the left variable and its proclivity for hard work and achievement and so on, and the right variable and it's sort of just wanting to enjoy life and to be receptive and to be a little hedonistic, you can see how confused it can get, where somebody themselves has their life purpose fulfilled through being right variable, but their nodes are left variable, and they're trying so hard to go to school to become a doctor or a lawyer or something, but they can't stand it. Turns out maybe they don't need to be that themselves, they just need to be surrounded by that. So, I mean, you're quad right, you're somebody who is very laid back and right variable, and then you can also be surrounded by people like yourself who have that right variable, receptive, non-competitive, not hungry for competition and stress and all the things that the left variable thrives in, right? But then somebody else who's a mix of those, who has a combination of right and left variable, is going to have a very different experience of it. So I think just realizing that the path that we take to get there is not necessarily us, right?
Yeah, the only thing, the distinction, the example that you shared that I would add is that when you're dealing with somebody, say, who's a right mind and they're trying to live a left life, or they're in a left life, it's also conditioning. You don't know, because the world is so into being left and strategic that that's going to be the theme for anyone, basically, is to try to be that. What happens when you're right, like myself and Ashley and other people, is that there's a disconnect between what you just, for me, is what I know versus what I'm experiencing. I have a right, and I also think the node environment is more important on the environment side, on the design side, than it is on the focus side in terms of left and rightness. Because I think when you have a right variable body environment, is that world comes to you versus left, you kind of meet it more in that part. Now I have a left focused view or right, so I'm a focused observer as a unit, right? So I have to focus on my observer, and I'm a right mind, but I have a left brain. So I have this unit here. But what I've learned to do is through being yourself, you become yourself. That's the difference. So when people get like a reading like that, that's what you said is true, but it's also the conditioning. The conditioning is huge. You know, it's not just our design competing with each other. It's because it's competing with each other in a field of condition, not self-condition.
Yeah,
mean,
no, I that does make sense. Yeah, I see. I mean, so yeah, it does.
Did you
And,
say through being ourselves we become ourselves? Because that's some deep shit.
Yes. Become like the more you do it, the more you be it. See, so, but how do you
be
know
it,
what you're?
you become it.
How do you know? I always say when people say, "I live my life."
Damn, Yoda.
How do you know, man? How do you know? Got to live your design. More you do, the more you do.
I see James is on now, and hi Sparkly, glad you were able to join. And I see Blossom had to drop off, but she said fun conversation. Yeah, it is. And so I didn't mean to get too derailed into variable, because variable, I mean, it is very interesting, but I do see that ultimately as having more to do with awareness, even on the design side. That, I mean, yes, there is just tuning the awareness, being attuned. On the design side, you're still attuned to noticing when the environment's correct for you or not, and
the
through
big thing I just
variable.
shared, if you're left or right in your environment, your observer or the observed is a very different context. So it's an important context. It's another layer of how you align within your road. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
If you're-
absolutely.
If
Yeah.
I'm trying to go run down the road instead of sitting by the river and let the river pass, see who comes to me, then that's something that's going to be very awkward. Even though I have a left brain, you know, and I have a left focused view, my right environment and my right mind are just relaxed in that. I could see where I can be strategic, but I don't have to be doing anything necessarily going after it. And so I think that's where variable comes in an important part when we talk about nodes, is on the environmental side, on the design side.
Yeah, absolutely.
The observer,
Yeah.
the observer.
No, it's a huge difference. Yeah. And just noticing, I mean, right, just to kind of take what, Mark was saying, that there are these very basic formulas you can apply, where if you have a left variable design node, that is your environment, then being in a sort of a couch potato environment is going to be a slow death. If you walk into a room and everyone's just watching things and they're really chilled out and relaxed and zoned, that's going to deplete your energy. But if you're in a place where people are actually hard at work and they're so focused they might not even notice you, and so on, that's going to give you energy. And so, yeah, I mean, there are these kind of fundamental binaries that you can see.
It was a third line design side, right? Which was, I think is that was only left environment there or no?
Yeah, so Ra was right variable perspective or view. That was his only
that was
right
his only
variable.
one.
Right, exactly. I saw what you're saying there. I got what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, I got it. So I mean, yeah, it's definitely going to be worth looking into variables, and I think variable is pretty well analyzed, although always deserving of more depth. But what I really want to look at is just back to the lines. Let's just get through all 6 of them, and then at the end of that, we can open it up. Any questions, comments, anything. So first lines, we did a little bit of deconstruction on. Any other ideas on first lines? Do you have anything, Mike, on first line, or anyone remote? No, nothing. Okay.
Dealing with security.
Dealing with security.
Just look at all the
Okay.
kinetic continuity of every line, and just use those themes that you see in the 4 transformations and the lines themselves. You can use those kind of themes. Security. What else are we dealing with? We're dealing with fear. We're dealing with people who need shelter or not. A certain level of security we're talking about.
Yeah, and through continuity, I know that Ra did talk about the first and second colors as being very survival oriented, whereas the third and the fourth were more development oriented, I suppose. I mean, yeah, there are these binaries. Yeah, I guess that makes sense too. So yeah, okay. So the first line environments are ones that, I mean, I guess something else I would say is probably environments that are going to, or roads that are going to take a really long time to come into their fullness of their power and so on, because the first line does kind of start at the bottom and end up at the top. It's the whole apprenticeship and kind of, you know, becoming the teacher, the student who becomes the teacher. So then second line, we had a bit of deconstruction already. And comment on the first line nodes. Ricky Revel says she's high maintenance in her environment. Yeah, maybe the first line is going to kind of require more effort in some sense. But then for the second line, so the second line environment, we already had kind of, so Rob was saying that it's an environment where being called will be part of it and having these barriers. You were saying earlier you had some keynotes like taste and environment, and you have a second line.
Yeah, I think there's a discernment. You know, there's a naturalness though too. You're a natural in your environment or not. You know, if you're in the correct environment, you're going to just fit in. You're going to be called to do something in that environment. You're going to be recognized in that environment. So, and then depending on what gate you have, we'll give you the themes.
Yeah, and of course we want to combine these two to see that there's the pure one environment, the 1-1, but then there's also going to be the 1-6, or there's going to be the 2-1. It doesn't seem like the nodes ever really move fast enough, although maybe they might at some point. It'd be interesting to see if anyone ever actually has further than they do. Yeah. So there's also going to be like a 1-5, and there's going to be a 1. There's going to be interesting combinations. Yeah. 2-6. Yeah. So no, they do. I was thinking gates, but the line level, yeah, they absolutely, the nodes are variable enough in speed that you actually get every combination. So it's as far as I know, some are probably more rare than others, but because of that, you then end up with, I mean, you end up with an interest, I guess you end up with 36 different combinations, right? And so that's kind of interesting, actually. There's the 32 nodal polarities, which are the environments by gate, but then there's the 36 line combinations of the nodes. And so that would definitely be an interesting exercise. I'm pretty sure, yeah, because if you think about it, the fact that, for instance, my nodes are both line 3, but they're a whole gate apart, which means there was a time when it could have been, depending on the speed, any of the 6 lines between those gates from one side to the other. So yeah, all 36 nodal environments are possible, or I guess all 36 nodal line environments. Comment from Brandy Jordan: second line design. South node 22.2, north node 47.2. She watches herself and others experience and learn from oppression through mental activity. Interesting. That's that, 47.
47.2 was just a placement, and for sure mental oppression.
Yeah, she has, that was Ashley saying she has gate 47 line 2 Venus. And so Brandy continues. She watches herself and others experience and learn from oppression through mental activity. When she has learned from the oppression instead of suffering from it, she can gracefully, socially share her emotional truth. Yeah, that's there's a great riff from Alokanand Diaz about this, where he talks about 47 and the secret of what 47, he's the real master of polarities. And he says the secret of 47 is in 22, which is this graceful listener. And what it tells you is that the most oppressive thing in the world is forcing someone to listen to you. And so that the oppression, when people hear this, they imagine oppression like an oppressive regime, but really it's the day-to-day oppression of someone who won't shut up, and they're talking at you, but you're not really listening. But you're so graceful with that 22 that you're kind to them, and you don't tell them to stop talking, because you know that they're not doing it to personally harm you. In fact, they're harming themselves. You have the grace to know that they're actually their own worst enemy, because they won't stop talking, and that they're really oppressing themselves through their oppressive mind that just continues to think of oppressive things. But okay, the transmutation of mental oppression through a graceful expression of emotional truth, or not, as a result of correct places, spaces, and relationships. Yeah, so whether it can be transmuted. Yeah, that's a really nice synthesis there. I see that. And then Sparkly is commenting on what her nodes are. So she has first line design nodes. And yeah, so I mean those first lines, I mean, it's going to give a hint of what is needed in this life and what road you're on. And that's the road of perseverance. Yeah. The road of introspection, of perseverance, of all that. Yeah.
If strong foundations or not.
Yeah. And then the second line, yeah, we've done a little bit of kind of deconstructing from that, but that's going to be roads that are going to be very specific and very precise and in a very narrow channel. You're saying need to be pragmatic that for the second line. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I would just say when I think of the second line, I think of a very narrow channel of for whom if they're waiting, they're stuck somewhere and they're trying to get to the next place. It's like saying no 9 times until they say yes. Whereas for some people, like for a third line, it's kind of like, well, how do I get there? Let's just try it. Didn't work. Okay, try this. Doesn't work. Try this. Doesn't work.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah. Or something bumps into it. Mark's saying, but I would say for the second line, it's really about not trying everything. Most of the things you don't even want to try. You don't need to taste something to know it's not right for you.
Well, just think of taste as the category, on the second color in the determination. It's, whether you are open or closed to it. And those things play, whether you're open to being called or not, whether you're open,
Yeah. And so how much more of it is about what's the right thing for you, not just a way to go. Like say that you are looking for a job, you need a job to go on. Well, that first line, it's going to be a job that's going to have required that you're prepared for it. The third line, you might be able to try one job, doesn't work. I'm trying another job. That didn't work. Let's try this. The second line is kind of like, which of all these job options is really for me? Which is my path specifically? There's something very specific about the second line.
Yeah.
That and it's maybe they're hard in different ways, where the difficulty of the second line is that they can wait a long time for the right thing to come along, because
It's very
not
specific.
yeah, it's all about what's right for them, and they can't just jump into it and see if it works or not and try the way that the third line can. All right, so and then fourth line nodes, we were talking a little bit about that. Yeah, you have the fourth line nodes. So this is a way that you can't really do it alone, right? Once we get to the upper trigram, there's going to need to be some other involvement from other people. It's nodes where your network will help you get ahead in life, or I suppose. I mean, is that safe to say? I mean, I don't know how else to deconstruct these other than it's
Yeah, I would
it's
say
about
for me,
yeah.
any experiences with mystical systems of information have come through a social network. Which is
Well, and you're
really
also a
specific
4/6. You're also a 4/6 though, so it's going to be a
Yeah,
little tricky to do
but-
it. But you
it's
like
also-
other 4/6s, maybe.
It's also design nodes. So it is like I find myself in these sorts of mystical environments. I mean, think about a human design community. I lived in Santa Fe for years before I didn't know it existed. And suddenly I found myself there, right? Like weird experiences like that, where suddenly I'm like, oh, there it is, I'm not trying
Right,
to make it happen,
the
I'm trying
path
for it.
the path is through the community in some way, that the road is through the community. And that's also just an interesting point when you have disconnects between the sun, earth, and the nodes in terms of the binaries, or just in other ways. Like I'm a 5/1, but I only have third line nodes on both sides. You're a 4/6, but you have fourth and second line nodes, you said? No, third line. Fourth and third line nodes. Yeah. Fourth and third line. So I mean, you're a fourth line, but you are also drawn to other fourth lines as well as third lines, we could say. And now Steve Rhodes believes that the binary actually takes more precedence than the harmonic, which is a little bit against what Ra kind of teaches, which is that if you have like third line nodes like me, I would be drawn to third and sixth lines, or I would be compatible and comfortable with third and sixth lines. Steve Rhodes actually claims it's the binary, that I'd be comfortable with third and fourth lines more than I would with fifth and sixth lines or first and second lines. So that's interesting. Yeah, just the binaries. No. So the question is just on the nodal level, just in general, that the binaries have, even though they're pairs in a way. It's kind of like we are used to talking about desire and innocence, but you can also see how guilt and innocence are also related to each other. I mean, that's even more of a classic binary, you might
I'd say
say.
it depends on the context, I think, what matters, you know.
Well, we don't need to go into all of the nuance of it, but just to say that one perspective, at least, is that me having my third line nodes would make me very comfortable around third and fourth lines, even though I myself am a 5-1. But I would be so comfortable around them because I would understand, you know, what it is that they're doing. Like if my road is through the material trial and error process and all these, you know, material problems, challenges I face, I would get along with a bunch of third lines because, hey, they've been facing those problems their whole life. They're built for that. They're built to just get back up and to try again if it doesn't work and so on. So yeah, there is just kind of an interesting area of research there of just, I'm a 5-1, but I might have difficulty with other 5-1s. I might not necessarily, they're not in my nodal trajectory in that sense. Even though I myself am a 5-1, I'm a 5-1 who wants to be a 5-1 among third lines. Kind of a, you know, funny idea there. So.
Well, then you get trajectory. You also talk about base orientation, which involves the nodes, base node, the nodes of the base, nodes of the suns, earths, and how they come together to create your trajectory. So there's a lot of layers to that.
Absolutely. And just a little side point there is that Mark made some incredible graphics for the post-conference retreat, and all of those post-conference retreat videos are available for folks to watch if they want. And if they don't have the link, just message me after this and I'll be happy to send it on. But yeah, so okay, so we've kind of looked at the lines up to the fourth line, and you're saying that that's really that in your life, it's brought you into communities like you were brought into this human design community independently. Some people move to Santa Fe because they come to HDHD and they see you were already living here previously, having no connection to the human design community. You just kind of moved back because you liked it here, but then now you're part of this vibrant community. Yeah, your body's just here, and it's just, all right, this is a good environment for you, and that it's through community that you're going to kind of move forward in life. 54-4 is a very mystical line to have, that both of you.
What do you mean? Oh,
She's shores, yeah, being artificial shores. But okay, so yeah, I mean that is a good point. That yeah, yeah, and if there's any comments, please jump in. Anyone has comments, but
actually ask a question. I have 18-4 as my design south node and 17-4 as my design north node. And I've often struggled with how much is it me or who's incompetent or who's the what's called the PR person, or is it that I have some connection to those? Because I've never resonated with the idea of having followers myself. And the 17-4 is all about choosing one's followers carefully and things like that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's maybe that you are meant to be in an environment where people don't know how to choose one's followers, because that's something that you might be especially good at helping them figure out. Like maybe, you know, having people who have disciples. You yourself may not want disciples, but you might be really good at knowing what disciples they should have or not, right? It's kind of like saying like they should have them, they should not have them, because the nodes are what you're surrounded by, your environment, but also oftentimes where you're needed. I mean, that's how Ra looks at it in his Nodal Environments book, is what's lacking. And it's what you have that is lacking in that environment. I mean, it sounds kind of simple to put it that way, that where should we be?
Kind of thing.
Right. That's what Mark's, yeah. You're saying it's a lock and
you're
key.
the key, there's the lock, and you fit in together. So it's part you and part how you interact, you know, and what you're interacting with.
Well, and something that you have where, yeah, I guess it does take on a special quality, because you're saying you don't want the disciples. So maybe it's not that you're able to tell who your disciples should be because you don't want disciples to begin with, but maybe it is related to the correct environment for you, where what you have is what's missing in that environment. You have it.
You're also dealing with the gate level. It's gate 17, the gate of opinions, right? The fourth line. With your sphere, you have the sphere or a network of people with a lot of opinions. You know, you're also dealing with that on a base level. You know, you deconstruct the gate and the line, put them together, and you get all the different nuances you could see in your life, besides just the I Ching line.
I see. That's a good point. Yeah, that we can kind of just think about. It's a collective environment. It's a logical environment. It's an environment that's impersonal, where people are sharing opinions and trying to improve things, or
they telling us their opinions.
yeah,
Or they, you know, the flip side of everything.
yeah, and it can also just be where those things are lacking, and where they're needed, because it is kind of funny to deconstruct it that way. That what is my right environment? Where am I supposed to be? The place that needs me the most. Well, where's the place?
Are valued in the network, that kind of thing.
So that could be another way of deconstructing, is where what Mark just said is that it would be the right environment for you is one where your opinions are valued in the network. So I certainly value your opinions, and I'm glad that you're here in this extended network. Yeah, I like that. I like that way of looking at it. That's
And what needs to be correct.
yeah, and what needs to be corrected. Mark said. Yeah. So fifth line, any thoughts on the fifth line? How could we deconstruct that? You have anything, Mike? Or do you, what nodes? Oh yeah.
We did have more people with fourth lines who are here, like Nancy.
Oh yeah,
has
Nancy. Yeah,
line
Nancy.
side, and somebody else, Sparkly has it on the personality side.
Oh, and how funny that she has the fourth line one, and then Nancy has
She's so sparkly.
the fourth line of gate 8. Yeah. Mark's saying hi, Sparkly. Oh, Sparkly left. Well, okay. Hopefully not in reaction to that. I think it's just a coincidence. But yeah. And then Nancy says with her 8 line 4 and 14 line 4, an over enslaved penta contributor environment. Yeah. Yeah. Mike liked that. Well, what are your nodal lines, Mike? Let's see. What are, oh, he's 4 on both sides. Would you comment on that? he's hiding. Would you comment on the fourth line there?
Well, yeah, we kind of went over the fourth line already. Yeah, very social environments, environments of contagion. Personality for me, it's 7 and 13, and design 49 and 4. I do feel that I'm often in environments that are unconsciously lacking principles, and I have to bring principles into my environments. Burnout? Oh, yeah, I'm in a lot of burnout environments. I'm in a lot of people that can't muster the will environments. Mhm. I don't know. They get the 49-4 unconsciously, I think. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. That's another interesting way of deconstructing fourth line.
And I've got the burnout for South Node personality side, 29.4 and 30.4.
Oh, yeah. Christine has the burnout line. So an environment of burnout, perhaps.
The view.
Like I said again, that's like a roll gate, a de facto roll gate that Ra used, and so all this genetic continuity. So you can find all these themes throughout the chart that maybe you find a line, all the fourth lines you look at, and you can pick out some keynotes from these lines that can maybe describe the environment that you're in or that you're experiencing. That could be potentially helpful, just jotting them all down.
Yeah, that's a good point. That, we're kind of just deconstructing off the top of our head, but you could actually just look in the Ray V Ching and
I have a Ray V Ching copy, which I created many, many years ago. That's all the lines in a row. So all the first lines, then all the second lines, all the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, so on. That way you can look at it in aggregate instead of having to flip through everything. So
that's really cool.
I'll share that in the group.
Thank you. That's really, really cool. I like that a lot. So fifth line environments. What is a fifth line environment like? Is that a very collective environment, a line of
Paranoia.
externalization, paranoia? We have paranoia, we have distributing, okay, universalization. So these are the keynotes, but then how do we deconstruct them? Like, we know the third line keynotes, but it's kind of like
Fixers.
Sure,
they're
but that's just so
or
random. Okay,
non-fixers.
I was going to say though, I'm going to challenge you to think beyond the keynotes, because we know the third line keynotes, but then you've heard the masterful analysis Ra gave, where he basically put it in the context of what is the cost, or what is the toll booth that won't let you through until you do this.
An environment that needs to be practical. You need to be practical in the environment. Or not. I mean, but that's
But you're going to be tested. You're going to be tested in that way. Because I mean, that's part of it, is like, we know the keynotes, but to be able to actually apply them and to imagine, what is this road in life where you get stuck and you can't go any further until you do X. And so the third line is going to be like, you need to make some money. The fourth line is like, you need to have friends. You need to actually have a real network. And until you found your network, you're not going to be able to get through to fulfill your purpose, even if your purpose has nothing to do with the fourth line, right? But it's like, you need that network to get there. What does the fifth line need?
practical solutions.
Yeah, and calling stuff out.
Calling
Stuff out, because I think of fifth line environments as very cartoony, projection environments, right? So I think people with fifth line environment nodes often find themselves in places that seem like they're out of movies, maybe I don't know, maybe cults or friend groups that look like they're imitating some friend group from a movie, or things like that, right?
So it's like kind of larger than life.
Yeah, archetypal environments, right? And so, but the cartooniness can be so flat, and it needs to be grounded with some heresy. It needs to be given some substance, some body by practical heresies.
Acoustically practical.
Acoustically practical.
Yes.
Okay. Well, these are very, I loved that. Acoustic practicality is quite abstract, but I do love what you're saying, Mike, about just the fifth line. It's kind of like, they're not going to be able to really pass that threshold until they're able to give some actual lifeblood to the archetypal thing, because the fifth line does have this connection to the larger than life, to the archetype, but there are hollow expressions of that, and then there are expressions that are filled with something. Now, I do like all the keynotes that we're expressing, but I would just again urge thinking about, how do we synthesize that into what it actually looks like in terms of not being able to move forward, like being held back in life. Because we've all seen these tropes of the person who could have gone so much further in life, but they got stuck. How do they get stuck? Well, maybe they were first line nodes, they didn't do their homework. They were second line nodes, they weren't discriminating enough, or they didn't get the right call, or who knows what it is, right? They're third line nodes and they weren't able to actually keep persevering. It's like, how is the node putting a requirement on us, that nodal line, and what is that fifth line requirement? And so, yeah, being able to give life to the archetypes, sure. Being able to kind of have a little bit of a larger than life magic to bring some of that magic into people's lives, sure. But I mean, there's got to be other things as well. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of practicality. I had one until acoustic practicality just got me. I was like, sometimes I get a big question mark over my head, and the question mark, erases everything else. But I think one of them was just thinking about reputation, that you're not going to be able to get ahead in that life through, like, if you don't maintain some level of reputation. Yeah.
And
What about getting over the delusion?
Yeah, getting over the delusion, seeing that the delusion isn't productive. Because I think a fifth line environment that's just like stopping you at a place is one where you're just content to sort of revel in the whole like mythic amplification of it and the whole mythic inflation of the environment, without even noticing that nothing is happening, that you're not getting anywhere, because you're so entranced by it, you're so in the pageant of it. And so the reputation implies the practicality, and also implies the whole distribution thing, the universalizing thing, because you can be in the cult and you can just be patting each other on the back all the time, and it can feel really real and really convincing, but you lose track of how you're perceived by the rest of the world, and you're not bringing it to anyone, and you're not reconciling this like artificial reality that you're involved in together with the rest of the world.
You're not distributing it, and also you're not engaging with strangers, because we know that the fifth line is equipped to handle strangers. And so a fifth line environment would be a environment where you can actually have a lot of interactions with other people.
Get in and you get out.
Mark says you get in and you get out. Yeah, that was Ra's advice to the fifth line profile, was that after you've solved their problem, leave. So yeah.
For your reputations.
Yeah, because if you just keep hanging out, there's going to be a new problem.
Seduce and run, he said.
Seduce and run, Dave says. Yeah.
It's like a.
Oh, that could be a seductive environment or not, you know, that's true too.
Okay, do you have a comment?
I was gonna say, you could stay on the island of Lotus Eaters the whole time, but then you need to visit all the other gimmicky islands.
You said you can stay on the island of Lotus Eaters the whole time, but then you have to visit all the other gimmicky islands. You see the fifth line as a gimmick? Is this really how the sixth line sees the fifth line? That it's just a bunch of gimmicks. Okay.
Maybe
There's
the
a reason-
requirement is that you're projected on.
Yeah, well, right. That you actually can, and that when you lose your, reputation is because you can't live up to that.
Or it's a
Projection.
corrective- Or it's a correct projection, because you get those too.
Or they've made the projection personal. I see that a lot with fifth lines. It's like like for a 5-1, for example, like you're transpersonal, but people then project onto.
You're saying don't make it personal, or that
Yeah.
it feels right that you can get stuck when it's too personal. Well, I mean, these are all good ideas. I would just say after our session today, if you want to kind of have anything to continue thinking about and share, feel free to share next week or on the Discord. It's really just doing the kind of raw style deconstruction of the roads, because I guess if there's one image, and we'll do 6 lines and we can be done, but the one image to leave people with is that there's a sort of a hub with many roads to take, and that your nodes give you the key to that, so you can take that path and not a different path. And you're looking down the paths, and that third line path, you're like, that looks terrible. There's like spikes, and there's like dead skeletons that of people that haven't made it, and there's all like, I don't want to go on that road. It's like, well, that's the road you're on this life. That's your road. You look at the fifth line road, it's all like luxury and glamour, and that's
the melodrama break it up in either.
you say it's the opposite, that the melodrama. Oh, so you're saying that the fifth line road is the one that's okay. That the fifth line road is stark beauty and stark misery. At the operatic road, yeah. Okay, maybe the fifth line. I guess it is. Yeah, I could see the fifth line having this operatic quality, but I could also see it as being the glamorous road, or which one's the yellow brick road? That's got to be the sixth line road. Then is that really the? Is that the?
The yellow brick road is the magnetic monopole.
Oh, very nice, very nice. I think you've actually mentioned that before, and I never made that connection.
Before you run on to the 6th line, we
Yeah.
have people here. Casey has the 5th line in the design side, and Brandy has it on the personality. Can we ask them to speak?
I would love that, please. Maybe Casey could mention first.
Hi. Yeah, I just had my Uranus opposition. So my 5th line is in the body. And so I have a heretical body or design. I guess environment is the keynote for this, right? Like I have a very, I do need a practical, with being a mom of 3 kids, I have a very practical lifestyle, and I really have a bunch of different systems and things that make my life very practical and I just try to fill it with ease. And also I've embraced a lot of confusion. So it's 63.5 south node into 64.5. And so I've always kind of avoided confusion and always wanted to be, right and certain about things. And now I'm just kind of like, since I've almost completed my Uranus opposition, I really embraced just being wrong and being okay with being confused, and just like enjoying learning, I guess, and learning more spiritual wisdom, and embracing that in my life. And like I have more like practices in my daily life now that include spiritual practices that I didn't have before. So I don't know. Yeah. I like my
actually that's a really good point, that you've been able to get ahead and figure things out through having like almost, I mean, I know you, and I know you have like a bag of tricks and a lot of things that you can kind of rely on. And so I do see that 5th line bag of tricks thing of just having all of the practical tidbits and all of the ways. It's kind of like, yeah, life is going to check you, and one of the checks it's going to give is what's in the bag? That's what Mike says. No, but it's or just here's a problem. You're not going to be able to get to the next phase of life until you solve this problem in a way that doesn't require any cognitive overhead, that doesn't require any special case. It's like you have to universalize your solution to this problem. It's not like the third line where it's like, here's a problem, trial and error till you fix it. Here's a new problem, trial and error till you fix it. Fifth line's like, here's a problem. You have to come up with a solution that will always and permanently forever fix it for everyone. So you can put it to rest and go to the next problem. And it's a problem that you have to kind of universalize your solution, and you have to come up with a technique or a method or
dealing with other people's confusion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's
Yeah. And just like being like, I used to get really annoyed with being in environments that were confusing and like chaos, and had to be I was very kind of like almost anal about my environment. And now I'm just like, whatever, it's fine. We're gonna like figure it out as we go. And
you're doing that right now with your group. So your group
Yeah.
is you're helping dealing with other people's confusion by introducing human design to them.
you're
Yeah,
also
yeah.
really good with strangers. I have seen that you have. I mean, you're also a 5-1. So I mean, of course, how much of this is
Right.
your fifth line personality? How much of it fifth line design notes? There's going to be
Just match up well. Potential.
It's potential, yes. Thank you, Mark.
They
I'm
do.
saying that
They
you're
do. They do.
So
So
you're on already, but I
alright.
just say that as my caveat to all things.
yeah. So maybe Brandy would like to comment, and then we can move on to the sixth line, unless anyone else has any final comments on the fifth line. But I'd love to hear, and I can read your comment really quick, Brandy. You said with the fifth line personality, south in 63 line 5. Wait, are your
It's the
gate
same.
and lines the same? Oh my word.
Mhm.
I didn't realize that. Talk about fractal resonance. This is one of those things where we all start comparing our nodes and we're like, wait a minute, there's a reason we're all together here. So you said you watch yourself and others struggle with heretical doubt and confusion. Yeah, because the doubt of 63 and confusion of 64. Or they sometimes don't, which is also nice, right? And that you seek out others and others seek you out to feel practically validated. You watch yourself and people in your environment, when correct, bring illumination to mental doubt and spiritual and evolutionary concepts. Well, that is true, and I know because I'm in your environment, and I've seen you also bring a lot of illumination in those areas as well. So.
And I just
yeah.
like to add a little bit to say that I've noticed in this, I'm also in Uranus opposition. And what I'm seeing so clearly, what I thought I was going to see was this, or witness, was a south node to north node. And not that I'm not witnessing that, but what's more palatable is the surrender of the personality node, like it's something I'm doing, surrendering that, and then watching what's being done through me in the 2247. So it's this, like, I think that's the heresy. I think that's what's practical, is I've got to just let the personality have the experience, but then I'm just noticing in this shift that when I'm allowed to let this 5 be, and allow whatever comes coming without calling it my own, that naturally then is the consequence of that is the graceful transmutation of doubt and confusion. So if we put all 4 of them together.
Yeah, right. And that one of them is one that's happening through you and to you, and on the design side, so what's being witnessed, and the other is the one doing the witnessing, I guess. Or
Right, but if I claimed 63, 64, like as something that I was doing, there's no 2247 witness.
It kind of replaces it or something. That's a nice way to put it, that when the mind is so caught up in what it's doing, it can't really experience or it can't allow the design to really flourish. And that is interesting too, that you're saying that with the Uranus opposition, that's one of the bigger shifts there. I see one last, and please feel free to comment. This goes to Brandy or to anyone who has comments at any point. But I see one last comment from Nancy on the 5th lines, that she has personality north node and gate 23 line 5, south node gate 43 line 5, and her keynoting of that is suffocated confusion of feeling victimized and wanting to be yet having to do. The classic dichotomy between desire and need. Yeah, I know it well, being a desire motivated person myself, of the wanting versus the having. Yeah. So, I mean, well, that's, I guess when you're stuck between wants and needs, the main thing I would say is just, and it's funny because this is also relevant to the fifth line. I see the fifth line as the great should, the shoulder, and we talk a lot about how the should is the mind oftentimes and what we should do and so on, but also the should is just the call. And I guess there is a deep connection here between that and the mind, because the fifth line is the conditioner. That is what is conditioning us to have the mental program of what we should do. So there is a deep connection there. But what I would say is just anytime you catch yourself between saying, I want, but I should, you can rephrase that as two desires. And this is coming from a desire person. You could say, I want, and, or just as two wants, right? I want, and I want. So instead of, I want to eat cake, but I should be on my diet, just say, I want to eat cake and I want to be on my diet. Like, I have two desires. And yes, those desires may conflict with each other. I want to stay home from work and I want to go to work. It's like, that helps to own that desire. And in owning that, just that one little trick can help kind of break this part of us that splits, and the splitting that's saying the want versus the should and being opposed and so on. It's rephrasing it as two desires, and that can be really, really helpful there. Okay, well, I think we should talk about the sixth line and then let people go, because I know we've gone, we're getting towards the end here. So all I'm going to say about the sixth line is something that is kind of my own hobby horse for the sixth line. And I haven't really heard many other people say this. Every now and then I find something Ra said that supports this view. Perhaps the most supportive of this view is what Ra said about how before 1781, the sixth line did not have a tripartite life process. It just went on the roof and stayed there. And that really unlocked a whole series of realizations for me, where I basically started to see the sixth line in a completely different way. And I started to understand why we call the sixth line the hypocrite and things like that. This actually started almost 2 years ago. I started to realize and make these connections. One of the first ones I made was the sixth color environment being shores. And I started to think about the frequency of shores. What I noticed, well, shores are often very expensive places. They're places people go on vacation. They're places that are transitional places. You know, the sixth line is a line of transition, because you're on this vacation, you're a little more, and they're very experiential. If we think of the 5 and 6 of continuity with the solar plexus binary, and you're having this experience of being on vacation. And I started thinking, okay, maybe the sixth line only recently basically goes on their vacation and comes back, that the roof is the vacation. And that when we call the sixth line the hypocrite, and this is not a nice thing to say. I don't think the sixth lines I've actually met are hypocrites, but I do think that in the homogenized world, there is this sort of, who is the hypocrite? It's the one who says, I'm not going to work, but you have to work. I'm not going to be involved, but you have to be involved. I'm not going to deal with the fallout. You deal with the fallout. It's the exception. It's the privileged exception to the rule. And then I started realizing, and it really was such an aha, mind-blowing moment for me, that everything in homogenized Western culture and really worldwide global culture is idolizing not the fifth line. It's idolizing the sixth line, having made it, having independent income, not having to work for your money, having recurring revenue, having the good life where you get to just do what you want. Basically the permanent vacation, the permanent honeymoon. And this made me realize that it's really the sixth line that is the sort of, in its homogenized form, the seven-centered sixth line who goes on the roof and stays there and never comes off the roof. That is sort of the kind of homogenized dream or homogenized goal. Now, I would say that the true expression of the sixth line is having integrity and not being a hypocrite and having authenticity. And so I would say that the checks that the sixth line nodes are going to get are, have they been a hypocrite or not? They're not going to get very far if they have. Have they really walked the walk, or do they just talk the talk? Because if they go around just telling everyone what to do, but then they themselves aren't living up to that and not living out of that integrity, they're not going to get very far. And it's not because of the reputation problems the fifth line runs into. It's because life itself is going to cause those problems. Ra would always say the sixth line in the profile is most at risk in their late 20s and in their early 50s to illness, to all sorts of things, that it's kind of like their soul is weighed, you know, and if it's heavier than a feather, they're not going to make it. That kind of idea. So this is a road that is the charmed life, but it's the charmed life that requires integrity and authenticity to walk that road. It's the road where you have to hold your head up high, and you can't be sneaky or underhanded or tricky or any of that stuff.
So you go back to gate 30, line 6, all right, which is enforcement. You know, and this is the gate 30, you said with the themes of gate 30, protect one's spirit. So 6th line is enforcement, which means basically you gotta live correctly or else.
Yeah.
That's it. So anyway, he would said, if you have a 6th line, you got to live correctly or else.
It's the straight and narrow path. It looks like the yellow brick road of the endless vacation, of the endless honeymoon, but when you actually walk it, I mean, maybe the 5th line is also a straight and narrow path because it's one where everyone's watching you, because it's like the preferential track. The 5th line is the fast track. Okay. It's like the fast track, but then people are watching you and seeing if you misstep. The 5th line is the one where if you take a misstep, you fall really far down. I mean, I really like taking these different kinds of roads and seeing which line they fit in. The 5th line is like you get there quicker, everything's great, but one misstep and you fall really, really far, and it's very hard to get yourself back up. There's just like a muddy wall for 10 stories. You have to crawl back up out of the hole if you fall, right?
So
But the
how do you,
6th,
how do you put the 6th line for you in a nodal context?
well, yeah. So that's what I'm saying, though. I was going to say it's the straight and narrow because of enforcement, but I guess the 5th line, they both have straight and narrow qualities to them. It's just a little bit different, right? Casey says Candyland. Oh, well, maybe that's good timing to start to wrap up then. It looks like there we go. Okay. Sorry, just a moment.
Very practical.
Just a
Yeah,
moment. Yes,
I
please, go on.
wanted to hear from Nicola because she has a 6th line.
Oh, absolutely. I see. Right. She has personality south node, gate 14, line 6, personality north node, 8, line 6. Yes, please. I'd love to hear from Nicola, as well as there's a
And
network of opinions
maybe
around me, apparently.
And maybe James Deans too, who has
Yes.
designed 6th nodes.
Absolutely. I'd love to hear from both of you. So Nicola, if you'd like to just talk a little bit about the 6th line or anything at all, the permanent holiday state, your goal.
Yeah, I was just laughing at what you were saying. I just recently reflected on like, what is like the one thing that I want in this life? And it's that feeling you have when you're on holidays. Like, how can I have that all of the time? So it's just fun. So I'm a 4/6 with my 6th line personality nodes. So that was quite funny to hear. But honestly, I'm quite new to nodal stuff. So I haven't really been able to dig too much into it for myself because I don't have a strong grasp of my own design. So I'm open if there's any reflections that you have, but I don't really have anything of my own to share at this point.
Yeah, no, of course. And this is also, I mean, you can read what Ra wrote about the nodal environments, and every now and then he would comment on the nodal lines, but this is a pretty unexplored area of human design, and it's very rich. I shouldn't say unexplored, but just very, yeah, we're all kind of putting on our, caps of we're all basically trying to imagine, and it's just really an exercise in how can we imagine different ways of deconstructing this. So even deconstructing the 6th line as having to do with holidays and vacation and so on is not something that Ra even said, other than saying that the 6th line on the roof was kind of the ideal of pre-1781 life, that just going on the roof and staying there. And that really unlocked it for me, this dream of kind of perfection. That's the other thing about the 6th line, is getting it right. So
non-attachment. If you think of all the other themes in there, well, it's personal, it's innocence, there's shores, there's transitions, right? And then you have light or dark. So there's a lot of things that you could take from the 6, but it's the role model, but it's also, walking the talk, but it's also in an environment. Are people walking the talk or not? Are people, are they making it something they hold a lot of attachment to? Because that's also 6 lines more. there's a non-attachment. There's there's a separation. There's a sympathy apathy wave, but there's that you're going to deal with in your environment. But do you have that strong attachment to whatever is there or not?
So if we think of the road as having certain thresholds you can only pass through, maybe one of these is that you have to let go of what you've been attached to, that you get to a gate and the gate will only let you pass. It's like each road has a thou shalt not pass. And the thou shalt not pass for the sixth line is you're still too attached. The thou shalt not continue on until you have lightened your load, until your soul is as light as a feather, and so on.
Think about it in terms of that 30 line 6 enforcement. It's exactly the same thing as you have to be, it has to be all in alignment for it to really work out, to be the role model. That's the top of the hexagram, that 6 lines. So
yeah, I love that. That's a really, really interesting way to put it. Any comments at all, James? I see James says 44 and 24 on the design side. And also just a quick comment from Casey, 6th line design nodes probably need to be really minimalistic. Are you minimalistic, James? You're not that minimalistic. I don't know.
No, I think I am actually. I would say I like being minimalistic a lot.
Well, you are very Buddha-like. You have a Buddha-like quality, I can say, which also could be innocence, right? He's also innocence. Yeah.
Yeah. I do have the 18.6 Buddha line.
Oh, okay. 18 line 6.
I'm also new. I would say new to the nodal aspect too of learning what it is. I know Brandy said something to me that I don't know if it's only design, but she said that you're attracted to people with the same, like wherever your nodes are, you attract people like that in your life or so. People whose sun and earth is that. Because she has her sun and earth in 4420. What I have, my 44 was it 20? I'm sorry, I kind of forgot what my does that
44 24. Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, I have something for you." She told me that when I first met her, she looked at my card. She says, "Oh, I have something for you because your design nodes are my sun and earth." So that means that I have something for you. That's why I attended some of her classes, and I thought it was really cool because I did really get a lot of good stuff from her. I don't know if that makes sense, but
absolutely.
Okay.
Is that what you were telling me?
No, please go ahead.
Yeah. What I was saying was that on the stage of your life, I am a character, being that part of my incarnation cross is the same numbers as part of your nodal environment.
Now, is that only design or does it also go with personality as well?
I believe that there are connections in the sameness everywhere.
Okay. Well, now that
That's my belief.
When I'm looking at charts now, I'm looking at what my wife's nodes are and who might have those, and I'm looking for stuff like that. Now that you told me that, it was really cool.
Well, no mental choices, but it's just after your body arrives there, then you see what is there for you. Yeah.
Sure.
And apparently,
but that's been for the six line aspect of it. I'm still really learning like how the 6th line is looking to the next, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Curious with the nodes, what that looks like.
Oh yeah, so that's actually what Ashley was just about to say, that she's curious with the nodes. There we can see a little better. That she's curious. Yeah, are the nodes also looking for the next environment? Is it kind of like, I'm in this environment, okay, fine, over it. Yeah, let's go to the next environment. What's really interesting is this next one. So yeah, that would be an interesting way to kind of analyze that as well.
Well, that's a play into the non-attachment to wherever you are, because there's always something else.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Mark. That the 6th line needs to be non-attached because it is transitioning, so it needs to detach from what gate it's actually in, so it can meet the next thing. Yeah,
I'm going to meet another genius and freak. So the 4323 line 6, and so I really attracted to the people who can explain things, who can make things structured easily. Always been attracted to that, and that's also something that I like doing myself. But that's what I get attracted to.
Yeah. I see you commented, Lisita, that Christine would you like to hear from Christine? And does she? Oh, I see. Gate 30 line 6 design south node enforcement. So Christine has gate 30 line 6 as well as 29 6 confusion.
hit on what you said about do as I say, not as I do, and it ties back to the variables earlier. So mine are the opposite of Mark's, I think, which actually I think if you flip it one way or the other. So mine point together and then out, but if you flip it, then those are his pointing out and then in. So a while back I thought because my arrows are opposing, if I'm giving you left arrow advice, but I have to follow right arrow advice for myself, then it's like the ultimate do as I say, not as I do. Because I can tell you to be strategic and focused.
Well, that's why context is everything. You know, you when you're talking about being, say, left-minded, being strategic for oneself, that's different than me being able to see a strategy and share a strategy, but I can't be strategic. Hell no.
Right.
You know, but I can see what strategic is, but I can't be it.
Right. So do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, I mean, that is an interesting way to look at it, that there is going to be, and I think, you know, that's just, I think it's still possible to do that and not be hypocritical in a negative sense. I also saw the question from Nicola here, had the question about, is the fourth line also hypocritical? I mean, we can use these words in different ways, and there's also probably, like, yeah, I could see how, I don't know if hypocritical is the word as much as contradictory, that we are contradictory in many ways, that even just the difference between the sun, earth, and the nodes, that we are different from what we're drawn to. And we could be a really loud person drawn to really quiet people, or we could be a really meek person. You know, there's all these different combinations, and it's not really hypocritical in a negative sense. I think the only negative sense of that is really when I was talking about the sixth line not coming down off the roof and sort of being this ideal of the classic hypocrite of, I own the means of production, you use the means of production, I tax you. I mean, even just at a global kind of homogenized level, the amount of discomfort with land ownership and taxation and all of these things at a global political level, I think are an ultimate outcome of the burgeoning of the nine-centered being in shaking its fist at the seven-centered forms of oppression, which, sorry, the sixth line is, maybe it doesn't get as bad of a rap as the fifth line. The fifth line takes a lot of the flack, but the sixth line is the one that was ultimately saying, I'm the overseer. It is sort of the positive side can be the role model who inspires everyone. The negative side can be the exception to the norm, the Buddha who isn't really teaching non-attachment, but they themselves, they're teaching it. They're saying, you be non-attached because you're poor, but I have everything.
Bank accounts filled with all kinds of shit.
Yeah, exactly. So that can be the kind of hypocritical side of the sixth line. But, you know, honestly, I don't see a lot of that. And it is funny. We read the, Ray V. Ching, and we hear all these scary things, but most of the people I actually know, I see sixth lines in my life. I've been really lucky to see them as pretty much bastions of integrity for the most part. Even my dad, who's a sixth line, who I grew up, he used to love to say, do as I say, not as I do. And that was one of his favorite things to say. And I would catch him and I'd say, you didn't do that. He'd say, well, that's because I'm an adult and you're a kid. And, do as I say, not as I do. But even him joking in that way, I've seen how he's in his 60s now, and I've seen him coming off the roof and just how much he has stepped up to be truly a member of society, where for many years he was more of an observer, and now he's really stepped into it. And I've seen that with the other sixth lines in my life as well. So
I think of sixth lines as wise. Wisdom is what I associate with sixth lines.
Absolutely. Absolutely wisdom, though. There is something about, and the wisdom of having seen what it's all about, and having, okay, well, we could continue on. There's many other ways to go. A lot of interesting ideas. I mean, I do want to at some point return to the idea even of the sixth lines looking to the next gate and what that means. And I also see the question Nicola is asking, are nodal environments experienced differently in undefined centers? Yeah, I mean, like anything in an undefined center, it's going to be more sporadic, or I know you would use the word unpredictable, Lisita, which is a great way to describe it. But I also would just say more interdependent, that, these are going to be things that are dormant and you don't really get the next the next part of it, there's going to be periods of dormancy, right? They're not going to be always on, always active. So I don't know if you have any
Rod
comments.
did describe in the holistic analysis, the breakdown of if it's something that's in the definition, it's your sun, earth, or, the other, I mean, there's channels formed, or it's a hanging gate on a defined center or an undefined center. There is different role. If they're separated, there's other things that he looked at.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting ways to deconstruct that. I don't know that there's a super, generalization there, but just I see the undefined centers as often dormant, and we periodically go through like a phase of life where it's conditioned heavily through interaction with another person or through a long-term transit, and then that is this time during which we are very in touch with that, and then we're not as in touch with it during other times. It's still a part of us, but it doesn't really move all the time. I have an undefined solar plexus. My emotions move for a period of time, and then they kind of, game of musical chairs, they stop there. So for the nodal environment, I guess I would just say, that's probably going to be periods of time where you really notice those things, and where it's so important to you, and then other periods of time where it's just less important to you because you're focused. Your energy is elsewhere. The energy can't be everywhere all at once. And when the energy is in something being conditioned, that's something that's coming up in your life that you're really learning about. You're going to school there, you're becoming wise about, and you're getting this opportunity to learn during the time the energy is flowing there. But then the energy dries up and there's no energy flowing there. And suddenly there's no energy there, and you can't keep exploring that area of life because the money's run out, the time's run out, the energy's run out, it's all dried up. And so that's how it is in these undefined centers, where while it's flowing, while it's conditioned, while it's activated, you might think it'll never end, and then it ends, and it's surprising. It's kind of like, where did it even go? You're in a relationship and you're getting all this activation, and then it ends, and it's like, you can remember it, but it's even that the memory starts to fade. So I would just say, these are just going to be, anything that's not defined in your chart is going to just be something that you periodically go into and experience and learn a lot about. And it may be that for a period of time, you have a long-term transit, or you're in a relationship with someone who's conditioning that, and that's activated, and you're learning all about that, and you're seeing that play out in your environment, and you're a part of that environment. And then it dries up, and suddenly you're no longer a part of that.
And then you're in the wrong environment. So, or the incorrect environment in the correct environment.
Yeah. But it's,
then it'll show up when you're in the correct environment versus not.
Sure. But also you might just not, it might just not be that relevant to you at a certain point in your life. The environment might be really important to you for a period of time where you might have that activated and you're learning all about it. And then you might be feng shuiing your house, and you might be really thinking about where you go and where you should live. And those are also G center issues, but.
Well, I have an undefined personality, Sun Earth, 3938 in my undefined root, right? So my environment will bring the people who I'm here to provoke in the way that I'm here to provoke as part of my cross attention, or not, or provoke in a different way, depending on the environment.
And being around people like me who have a defined root, and Mike who have defined root, can help that. And Vaughn has defined root. Yeah, you're going to have a lot of defined roots around.
It's going to come out with the same vibration. Depends on the environment and the actual other person, and whether it's correct or not.
That's a great point. How dependent it'll be.
Correctness.
Yeah, Casey says the road will be sporadic. Well, okay. Speaking of root, I think it's about time to wrap up. I appreciate everyone for joining. What a great turnout. Last comment from Blossom. She believes Andrea talks about link nodes in undefined centers, indicating that the spirit being broken may be a part of that journey or life path. Well, that is really interesting. I'd love to dig more into that. It's an interesting idea that we have some preordained difficulties, and, spirit being broken sounds pretty ominous, but I've also experienced my own heartbreak of the sort of higher heart that has led to greater capacity for love. And it's actually, certain life experiences can make you feel like your heart is breaking with love. So, there's,
Dark night.
Yeah, Mark says, or a dark night of the soul as well. Yeah, I mean, those things can be part of the road. So thank you for that, Blossom. That's a very mystical and interesting observation, or just, I mean, I haven't encountered that, but I'd love to look more into that. So yeah, and if anyone wants to continue this chatting, yeah, any final thoughts?
I received a photo of a typewritten piece of paper on the ground as you were sharing that. It says, when you see your matter going black, rejoice, for that is the beginning of the work. And there's a few mistakes on this typewritten sheet. It says it 3 times and there's a bunch of typos. Someone was practicing typing.
I'm calling it. That was Eve. That's gotta be Eve. That was definitely Eve. Okay. Inside joke for those who don't know Eve. Thank you, Richard. Yeah. Super fun discussion. Thank you, Casey, and everyone else. And yeah, if you'd like to continue any of this on the Discord, you can, and maybe we'll talk about it in smaller groups as well, or just however we want to do it. But I really loved having everyone here. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Until next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.